Awesome. So thank you everyone for coming to Mastermind's Inbox Management for Neurodivergence. Like I was talking about before, we are all here to share ideas, tips, and tricks on how we're managing the influx of constant notifications, constant tasks that you need to do. And that is not only just email, but also for other types of inboxes. So it can be your Asana inbox, it can be people talking to you, chat, anything like that. We're just going to share some tips around that. We have some great panelists today. Kim, Scott, Erica, and JR are all here to share their tips and tricks. And I want to tell you a little bit about who we are and why we're doing this. Asana, for those that don't know, is an absolutely lovely project management tool that really works for my brain as a neurodivergent. Myself and some of the nerds here today are part of the Asana Ambassador Program. It's a volunteer program where we just lead community programs together just to be able to connect to the community. If you are interested in becoming an Asana ambassador, it's very easy and they welcome all levels of familiarity to join. You just need to be able to take a certification and participate in the actual community itself. So if you're looking for more resources to connect to a community that like uses Asana project management tools or even just enjoy project management tools in general, I'm going to drop this link into the chat where you can check that out and learn more about that. And like I mentioned, we're all volunteers here. We really just want to be able to have conversations with the neurodivergent community in general. So definitely throw in any questions that you have in that chat as we go. Who am I? I am a award-winning marketing consultant and speaker. I've been doing marketing for about 13 years. I really focus on how can I empower people to do great work without sacrificing themselves. I believe that mental health, neuroinclusivity, and well-being are so important to the work environment. And we, in general, are not incentivized to think about those things in the work environment. So I try to bring that out with series like these, like trying to be able to talk to the community and bring that out. So I started using Asana almost a decade ago. I had implemented it at a team where we actually were able to save about 3 years worth of work for our team to really through all the features of Asana. So it was self-service, being able to template things, being able to implement automation. So it's a great platform. So definitely check it out. If you are interested in signing up for early access to these events, because they do sell out quickly, check out this link tree and this QR code right here. My information is on there. And if you are aware of Asana, there are things called celebrations, and I chose a narwhal here. Fun fact, I did not know narwhals existed for about 25 years of my life. I thought they were mythical. I thought they were like unicorns, but they are real. So next, I'm going to introduce our panel. Erica is our first one up here. Erica is a project management team lead with over 12 years of combined marketing and project management experience, working at an agency with brands like Nike and North Face. She's had an ADHD diagnosis at 15. She thrives in bringing clarity to chaos amongst creative and strategy-led teams, especially when using Asana. Definitely, Erica, do you want to say hi real quick?
Yeah, hi everybody. Glad to see so many new faces.
Yes, we have a great amount of people attending today. I'm so excited to get this started. Let's move on to Kim. Kim is a dynamic data science leader with 15 years of experience. She's driving diverse technical teams to deliver groundbreaking solutions and products. Proud mom of 2 extraordinary children with autism, dedicated to challenging societal norms and advocating for future workplaces where neurodivergent individuals can thrive and truly belong. I resonate with this so much. Kim, do you want to say hi real quick?
Yeah, hi everyone. And I'm here because I've learned a lot about neurodiversity
suspect I am too, but not diagnosed. But I think that's really thrown a light into what kind of future do I want to leave for my special young people who are incredibly bright and have a lot to contribute. And plus one to everything Xand said, there's a vision for a workplace that I think a lot of people really want to see happen. And if we're not there yet, that's why I want to do this kind of stuff.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And as a late diagnosed in life person, I think a lot of other people might be resonating with the I'm not sure, maybe I am, maybe I'm not kind of position that you're in as well. So let's move on to JR. JR is new to this group. I've had a couple of conversations with Kim and Erica as well, but JR's first official masterminds is happening today. JR helps people and teams get better results with Asana, certified Asana expert. His company is improving every day, and he is also a forum leader for Asana. He's autistic with ADHD, and you can find out more about what he does on improvingeveryday.net. We will also have these links at the end of our session put into the chat so that you can find all of us, and we'll have more information on where you can find the panelists. JR, did you want to say hi? Oh, JR, you're muted.
Prevent myself from making noises. Yeah. Hi, everyone. It's good to be here. And yeah, lovely to talk with these people to find out better ways and how we can learn from each other in finding a way that works. I hope you pick something out and hope something as well.
Oh, I think everyone's going to learn so much today. Okay. I did mention that JR was a forum leader in Asana. Asana does have a forum that you can go on and engage with people on the best ways to engage in different tasks on Asana. The other thing I just wanted to quickly highlight is that there is a neurodivergent tag on Asana forum for you to find more resources there. It's fairly new, but feel free to use it yourself. If you're saying, oh, this type of task or this type of tool is something that I use a lot, you can use the tag on the forum channel. We do have a couple of recaps there as well as far as our previous masterminds. So with that all said, let's move into our agenda. So I really wanted to bring this out because inbox management is a really common challenge, not only for neurodivergents, but just in general. It's can be very overwhelming at times. And what we're looking to engage you with today is really systems that are working for people that are currently that have figured it out, that have decluttered, organized, maintained, and figured out their inbox system that works for their thinking style. The next thing we're going to talk a little bit about is turning emails into action. How can we figure out the best way to look at email overload and change that more into, hey, how do we action these things? The third thing we're going to focus on, because it's incredibly important for the neurodivergent community, and a lot of times we ignore it, is how do you take care of you in this process? We need to figure out the best ways to reduce stress, to protect your energy. There's a lot of decision fatigue that goes into figuring out how to go through and prioritize all of these different things that are happening. So how do we avoid email anxiety while really staying productive in that space? We'll follow that up with a dedicated Q&A. So if you have questions, I am monitoring that chat. So I'll be either infusing them into the panel as we go, if we see that they're related to the things that the panelists are talking about, or we'll put it into that Q&A section at the end. Lastly, we'll have the takeaways and a thank you. So you'll see the space where all of our panelists are online, where you can go and find them afterwards. And with that, we will get started. One of the things like I mentioned, I wanted to do this is because I find myself doing this a lot, where I see my inbox overwhelming and hundreds of emails that are unread. And instead of doing anything about it, I close my laptop and walk away. And I have found that there are systems that I've put into place that really worked for me to manage that email anxiety, to filter them through easily. Whereas some people in my life are more like this, where they just ignore that red notification. And once I started looking at this type of issue for myself, I was like, okay, let's bring experts in that have figured this out and really truly understand how they have worked through understanding their own brains so that I can learn from them. So with that, we're going to set the stage a little bit and we're going to remind that email in like management is just one section of this overwhelm and overload of notifications of different places. So there's also the inbox inside of Asana. There is people chatting you, slacking you, people physically talking to you, maybe people leaving voicemails. There are so many ways for actions and items to come into us that we need to figure out, okay, let's think about how we're going to move forward with that. And I see in the chat, oof, attacked on that ignoring the notifications. I know if you don't have a system to take care of it, one of the things I do is go into paralysis where I'm like, I'm just going to pretend they're not there. And then we also see sometimes I delete so that I don't feel overwhelmed by that number. And that is definitely a tactic. But one of the ways we want to make sure is like, how do we set up filters and understand what needs to be actioned versus what doesn't need to be actioned? And that's one of the things the panelists will talk about is like, how do we start to filter this before it becomes overwhelming? So I want to get into our panelists. Each of you on the panel, JR, Kim, and Erica, has a super unique experience in navigating inbox management in general as either allied professionals. Can you share a little bit about your personal journey and the biggest challenge you faced with inbox management? And feel free to unmute and come off.
I think one of the biggest challenges is not to open the inbox when it's not the good time to open the inbox, because it's really, if you're doubting about, you don't know straight away what you're going to do for the day, it's really an easy reflex, and I'm still combating it. So, let's see if there's any new emails, because that could be work that I could just get started on straight away instead of setting my own priorities first. So I think that's one it's still a challenge combating it, but getting better at it.
Yeah, I'll go next. +1 to JR. I think the other thing that one of the biggest challenges still is, but I've learned how to manage it better, is just the word inbox. As Xand was saying, there are so many different ways you can get a task. So that's how I've learned how to define inbox by what's a possible way I can get attacks. And when you have children you have to take care of, and I know other panelists do here too, and I'm sure some people on this call do as well. You're actually a manager for other people. And so your teachers will call you. You'll manage their social schedule for a time. I'm looking forward to that day when I don't do that anymore. But there are just so many different ways that you're going to possibly get a task. Snail mail, I still include that in my inbox. I think that, and then figuring out an effective way to prioritize and kind of box out time to manage that activity, which I'll just call administrative work. And I think that's been a big challenge. And I'll also add, just every app is designed to act on your animal brain so that you get interested and distracted in new and shiny things. And if you have ADHD, you are hyper tuned to that. And everything beeps and boops at you as if it's the most important thing to look at. And so notifications are a major challenge for me.
I will +1 to what both JR and Kimberly said. I think that there's a lot that goes into planning your day and figuring out what time of day works best for you to be able to receive notifications. In my professional life, I will add that my biggest challenge is realizing that not everybody treats inbox the same way I do. So just because I look at my email first thing when I sign on in the morning and maybe last thing before I sign off, or same with my Asana tasks, not everybody operates that way. Letting go of the expectations that everybody would treat their inbox the same way, especially in regards to communication between different teams.
Yeah, one of the things that I love seeing is getting like a auto reply email that says, "Hey, I don't check my email inbox between X and X," because it's clearly setting an expectation of the time when this person will be checking their inbox. And I always wonder if they, on JR's comment, I always wonder if they do stick to their own rules as well, and they don't open their inbox at times when you're not supposed to. And then lastly, with Kim's piece there, I think remembering that we are also humans and we also have to manage not only our professional side of life, but also manage our household and manage our personal side. And the more work we can do at work about being intentional with simplifying things and making things easier for us will make our personal lives easier as well. So I love all of those insights. Thank you so much. And Erica, one of the things I just wanted to highlight there was the letting go of expectations is super, super important. Like, we all have a made up image of what the professional world is supposed to look like in our mind. But what we really need to focus on is, hey, like, how do we make this work for us? And then also communicate that outwards towards other people. So we had a couple of comments in the chat I just wanted to bring up real quick. The timing about when to open the inbox is such a good point. I always open it first thing in the AM, and it could totally derail me or freak me out instead of just getting into the work I know I need to do. That's really an interesting observation there, Melissa, because some people at the end of their workday prep for the next day, the work they need to do. And then if you check that inbox in the first thing in the morning, it will derail you because you're having to rethink all of your prioritization that you already set up. And you might also lose track of, okay, I already set this prioritization based on my long-term goals and things that I need to hit. So I love that observation, Melissa. Yeah, maybe the morning isn't the best time. And then Morgan also put in, I found that making the difference between actioning, filing, and acknowledging has been good for me to deal with my email inbox. 100%. I love, love, love that, because there's different tactics you need to take for different things. And if we treat all tasks the same, we're just going to get into this 100,000 emails unread situation. All right, we're going to move on to the next section. We're going to talk more about the systems that work, and we're going to dive into how our panelists are working on this. And let's go into approaches that you're using for inbox management. JR, if you're comfortable kicking this off, because I know we wanted to talk about your overall inbox management strategy, you can talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, it's mostly there's some prep work for it. The core is inbox zero. And it used to be the slide that you had with the 1,000-something notifications and the clean inbox. I used to be on the red side with all of the notifications and a lot of missed emails. And I used to go back to, oh, there was something important, and scrolling. And personally, I think inbox zero is, you can't really make an argument against it, because if you do it well, you only look at the email once, and then either it goes on the calendar, it goes into your task system, or you archive the information somewhere that you can find it again. But the idea is you only touch the emails once, and then it goes somewhere. I start off with eliminating all of the notifications that I have. I'm really strict about, I want to choose when I look at the inbox. So no red dots for me, because a red dot to me is like a laser pointer to a cat. I can't ignore it. I just, oh, there's something new. I need to look. All the sounds go off, and I try to eliminate all of the email lists that I don't want to unsubscribe the first time you see. Then I default to, when I open my email, I default to calendar, because it's the same program, but I don't want to see my email first. And then when I do go into my inbox, because sometimes I need to look up stuff that I'm working on, or I expect a certain email, and when you then go to email, you see all the email. And I circumvent that by making sure that all the email lands in a separate folder that's for processing, and everything's marked red automatically, so that I don't get distracted by the number that's before the for processing folder. So it's basically putting layers in between me and looking at my email when I don't want to. So I can, as a reflex, I open my email and then I look at the calendar and oh yeah, no, not the email, yeah, calendar. That's good. It's more important. And I try to hide my email between a couple of protection layers. So I think that's the main system that I use.
So it sounds like overall, you want to be able to touch your emails one time by eliminating these notifications that are coming in, making sure to unsubscribe from enough of the newsletters that you don't necessarily need. And then you also prioritize looking at the calendar versus the actual email inbox itself. And then you also mentioned circumventing the email overload by visually marking it red and filtering it to a folder. Can you talk a little bit about how you process that automatically? We also got a question in there explaining that last part about labeling things as processing.
Yeah, I use Outlook myself, but I think you can set this up in any modern email software. Is you have rules that can run on your inbox. A special caveat to those working in Outlook: you need to set it in the web version and not on the desktop, because otherwise it will only run on that computer that you've set this to. And what you can do is you can make a rule for all email that says, when something lands in my inbox, I want you to mark it as red, and I want you to move the email to a separate folder that is for processing. And I have a separate rule that says, if I'm in the CC and I'm not in the queue, then it moves to for speed reading, because then I read those. There's no task for me because I'm in the CC, so I check that less regularly, and I try going fast mode through those emails. Does that clarify, Aubrey?
For me, I think that definitely explained a little bit more about it. And in Gmail, I have additionally a rule set up. There's a productivity expert called Jeff Sue, who I'll share in our resource section once we get to the end of this, who has a lot of great filters and setups for different types of how do you filter through your email. And one of the things I have set up in my Gmail is anything that has a unsubscribe link, put it into a newsletter bucket, because it's automatically going to be something that is more marketing focused and something that I am not necessarily needing to action and more I just want to read it later. So let's move on. Kim or Erica, who wants to jump in into what approach are you using?
Yeah, I can go because I think I might help address one of the questions there from Aubrey. So I wrote down some of JR's tips because I'm going to try them. Things I'm not doing yet. I've actually come up with a process because that's the kind of nerd I am. And I really like tools. I haven't actually used Asana, but I've used a lot of different project and product management tools. And just because of that, I'm very comfortable with optimizing workflows and creating custom templates. And so for me, that works really well. But I think what a process that I found works really well for me is roughly based on David Allen's getting things done method, and then heavily adapted it to my personal needs. And step one in that is, again, identify all your inboxes and all of them. And that includes your mailbox, it includes Slack, it includes my kid sometimes comes up and tells me things he needs for school. Really know what your inboxes are. And for the ones that you have control over when you look at them, block off time to do it. And I'm a big fan. I did make this change. I used to do it in the morning. I moved it to the afternoon. So I block off the last hour of my day goes to inbox management. And during this hour, I do a few things. I look at my task board, and I have one at work, whether or not I have a team using it too. I have one in my personal life. And I go through and just update the status. Did I get everything done? And then I go through all my inboxes. And as I'm doing that, I immediately label a priority level. And I use something called the 4Ds, which is delegate, delete, defer, or do. And if it's a delete, I mean, it doesn't require an action, and I don't really need to keep this around. I delete it. I just get rid of the email. For things that I want to do, but not right now, I'll give it a tag, a label, and I'll archive it. If it's something that I need to defer, but I absolutely have to do it by a certain date, I will move it over to my task board and put a date on that so that I can refresh it. I do like a weekly maintenance of, okay, what's coming up for this next week. The delegate, if it's usually pretty easy to forward an email to somebody else and say, hey, can you take this? If you have a shared task board that you work in a group with, you can add a task there and assign it to somebody. But all these things, all these actions you can see will take less than 5 minutes per thing. Now, when it's a do, sometimes it's a mix. Sometimes the things that I have to do are a reply to an email. So if it takes less than 5 minutes, I just do it. I don't actually create a task. Because what I used to do, I just get task happy. Like, I love my little project management board. I love making tasks because I'm a dork. But I found that I would spend as much time making tasks as actually doing the task. So if it's a short task, I just do it. If it's sending a message in an email, if somebody else has to reply to it, like the next step is require someone else's action, I just wait on them to reply. Now, if it's something I have to get on them to reply about, sometimes I'll make myself a note somewhere. But if it takes less than 5 minutes, I just do it. If it takes more, I'll add it to my board. And then what I try to do, like once I have that board, then I'll look at what am I going to do the next day. And honestly, like at different times in my career, It's been more like I'm trying to plan out 1 or 2 weeks, not just one day. Lately, I've been in a job where I have to plan out every day. I've been rapid response. And so in that case, I try to block off time for the things that need to be done on certain days. And this, I think, was the most important thing. I've read a whole bunch of like productivity tips. I even went through a quiz that told me estimate how long something takes and put it on the calendar. And I ignored it for at least 5 times after I got that kind of advice. When I finally did it, it made all the difference because I've learned that for things I really like doing, I tend to underestimate how much time it takes just because I'm in the flow. It's creative work. I like doing it and I want to take that much time. And for admin tasks, I overestimate because I think it's so hard to write an email. It's not hard to write an email. I just procrastinate. So I think that time blocking really helped me kind of stick to and focus. And then the nice thing, and I always like to give people this tip, is always start with compassion because you will not, if you create a process, you're going to not follow your own path. Almost guaranteed. You'll get backlogged, you'll get sick, right? Something will happen. And just always forgive yourself because we're all humans. No human does anything perfectly. And the worst thing you can do is expect yourself to be perfect, fail once, and then give up completely. So always get back on the horse.
I love that. Love that. The resource of David Allen, Getting Things Done. We had another person in the message in the chat talk about that as well. The 4 Ds: delegate, defer, delete, or do. Just giving yourself only 4 options for something will help you to get past that decision paralysis, which I think is affecting us all a lot of the time. I also really like that tip of if it's less than 5 minutes, just do it. Just get it done and get it out of the way. Let's move on to Erica. I want to hear about your approach to inbox management, specifically because you're a project management lead. And so you're managing a lot of people's notifications.
Yeah, and I have a lot more descriptor for that based on your next prompt, but I'm going to talk a little bit about the approach I use for inbox, and I can keep that pretty short because I feel like a lot of us probably, if you don't have a process for your own or you have a very small idea of your process, approach it the same way. So my work email has its own place on my phone. All of my work apps have their own place in a little folder on my phone called work. And the notifications for that folder entirely and all the apps in it are silenced from a half an hour after I stop working until a half an hour before I start working. And the reason for that is because I want to check on any emergencies or anything I might have missed prior to starting to my day. But I also generally won't consider anything an emergency unless I see more than one notification. For personal, I'm also a mom, so I have a shared email with my husband. It's a shared Gmail account, and anything that is related to either of my kids, whether it's from their doctors, their sports, their schools, that all gets filtered into that one inbox that we share. So we share the responsibility over it. And then I have my personal email as well. And that's where like my Google Calendar is connected to and everything like that. Things are separated by work, personal, and children. But for work, I have time parameters between when I'm notified, so I know not to check them unless something comes up or I have a thought about something and I want to add it in. And then the other thing I'll say about my personal management of my inbox is that, and I might be alone on this, but I actually keep my notifications for my email off. So I'm only checking my email when I want to, because those red bubbles give me anxiety. And they prompt me, like, even if it's on a game that I have on my phone, like one of my kids' games, if there's a notification and a red bubble, I'm opening the app to get rid of it. So I keep my notifications off for my personal and even my kids' email address that I have for them. Those are only checked when I want to, and I always do check them at least once a day, but it's on a time that I choose.
Yeah, I think that's so important for the time that I choose is so important for us, right? Because we will fall off the bandwagon if we're chasing the red dot. JR was talking about, we're seeing notifications. I also don't have notifications for my email, but I check it more often than I would like to because of that dopamine hit. So I think for me, incorporating Pim's recommendation of time blocking would be really helpful for me moving forward. I just want to address a couple things. Yes, the recording will be sent, but you have to be on Asana. You have to be on Asana's email list. So when you registered, just make sure that you're not unsubscribed from their previous email notifications. But if not, go to my link tree where you can message me or find me on LinkedIn and just ask me for it. I'm just popping my link tree in there just in case you need it. And then just wanted to say there was one other message in here. Oh, people really love the shared email with the partner. I think that's such a genius thing that I've never thought of before. I have a shared calendar with my partner, but why have we never done like a shared email as well? Okay, Erica, I want to move into. Oh, sorry, JR, you want to talk?
Yeah, there was still a follow-up question from Aubrey, which I think I can touch on short.
Oh, yeah.
And briefly. For following up, I think Kimberly's point is excellent. And is their priority or is it my priority? The question was how to handle emails which you've responded to, but you're waiting for a reply to see what action or to see how you need to action on it next. So if it's their priority, they can reply or not, and I'm not going to bother managing their tasks. But if it's my priority, then I think there are two main approaches to this. You can either, in your work management software, which obviously is Asana for me, is I have a list of waiting for, so I can forward it or use the Outlook integration to put it into Asana and put it into my waiting for list. And then I put a date on it, so I'll get a reminder by then, and then it'll pop up in my tasks and I'll get back to them. And another approach you can use is you can have a special waiting for folder that you can use where if you've sent the email, then afterwards you drag the sent email to the waiting for folder, which you could regularly check like once a week. Is there anything I still need to reply on? But I think to do it well, you need to really choose to have a strict separation, because if you manage it in both places, it's easily missed. So I pick one or the other.
Thank you for calling that out, JR. Figuring out when to put it in your work management software versus keeping it in your email, I think is more of that like personal understanding and understanding like how you work through things. For me, my lazy girl method of I need to follow up with this person, but it's not important enough to put into the work management task. I honestly just snooze the email in Gmail. There's a snooze feature. I just snooze it until I think I need to follow up. So if I'm thinking I'll hear back in a week, then I'll snooze it. It'll pop back up in my inbox and I'm like, okay, now I can action upon it and follow up with it. Or if I see that I've already gotten a response, I'm good to go. I want to talk with Erica a little bit more because I know that we have a lot of tips to share in this. So let's talk about, many of us get stuck into a loop of reading emails, but not acting on them, or even just ignoring emails and not acting on them. So how do you transition from reading notification, email, inbox to taking action effectively? How do you integrate your project management tool into your inbox management?
Yeah. So the way that I utilize, again, inbox in my personal life is very different than at work. So being in an agency and working with a lot of different teams and clients means having communication coming in through a lot of different channels. We're using Slack, we're using Gmail, we're using Asana. And because of this, we use Gmail at my current company with Asana so that we could link and integrate client emails into our Asana projects or our Asana spaces so that they can easily be actioned on by the right team members. So I don't have an example of this, like, just to share in the presentation, but when you add Asana to Gmail, there's a little Asana icon on your right-hand navigation. You click that, you can choose who should be assigned, what goes into the email or the task, whether the email goes into the task description, and you can choose the project. In my case, whether or not my teammates who need to action on those inbox items were CC'd on the email or not, I could assign somebody to the work. Even if it was just like, hey, client A emailed us this, I need you to follow up with them within the next 24 hours. That also keeps me out of my Gmail inbox and keeps with my projects that I'm managing so that I can say, okay, did this person get what they needed from the client, or have they responded to the client within the 24 hours that we're supposed to respond in? And it keeps everything organized in one tight system, especially since all the work is in Asana anyway.
Mhm.
Another point in that regard is a lot of times clients will only email the project manager, or they'll email the project manager and like the team leads, but they won't email the doers. The doers will likely need the information pulled in from those emails, so that integration is really helpful there too. So yeah, to wrap it up with a bow, this helps me keep track of the project next steps, any client communications, and make sure that the comms, whether they're in Slack or Gmail, because we know that Slack integrates to Asana as well, are integrated into the one system we're using for the total project management.
Thank you for that. That's really, I think, one of the most important things that you mentioned there is like keeping the tasks with the projects and making sure that you're always incorporating, like, seeing the big picture. And I think that's what we get lost in an inbox, which is line, instead of this is part of the goals and the strategy that we're moving forward, and this is part of the whole. So I think that's definitely, I love hearing the perspective of, hey, clients are maybe not emailing the right people, so we're needing to integrate different things so that everyone can see the right thing. JR or Kim, any comments on this one?
No, I don't have much to add on this. All great advice.
I have a lot to add on this because, yeah, it's really important, and we're being so there's different kind of communication apps which have different ways of excelling, and I think the key is to use the right communication tool for the right thing. So mostly, if you don't have another application that you use to communicate with your clients, then mostly you're going to communicate with external people. You're going to use email for that because everybody has email. You don't need to have the same work management system. Then you have messaging apps like Slack and Teams, which are good for fleeting messages where you just ping someone like, are you in the office today? Or just the quick things that don't need to be saved. But if it's really important that or if it's good for adding context to your project, or good to add context to the task, then it's really handy to keep communication at the task or at the project in your work management software. And maybe you can use email, or you can use the Slack or Teams to ping someone like, okay, this is urgent, but then with the link to the thing in your work management software, so that you can use a quicker medium to grab someone's attention. You really do want, when someone wants to know the status of a project or wants to know the status of a task, you should be able to trust that in your work management software, you go there and then you find all the relevant information, because nothing is more annoying than having it lost in someone's messages or someone's inbox, and then they leave the company and you didn't know what was discussed with the client. It's, yeah, it can really turn into a mess if you don't do that properly. And a tip that might help, it is a possibility if you use Asana to use guest accounts, which are free, where you can invite people to your Asana environment. But I would give a fair warning that would require a mature team to invite guests. Don't start doing this. Make sure that you have a handle on making sure that your work management software is up to date before you start adding external people to it, because if not, it's better just to copy the email and to have someone filter the client information into the software than it is to invite your client into an immature team having tasks go out of date, not spending any time on educating people on how to actually use the software. So handle with care.
I love that advice on guest accounts, but only for mature teams. And then the other thing I thought was really interesting there was the lost information. If something lives only in an inbox, it's going to be lost if someone leaves, if someone just is not great at managing their information. So if we can help our organizations really start to adopt some sort of project management tool, it helps everyone in the long run because everything's more centralized. Now, I included too many questions because I overestimated the amount of time that we would be discussing this. So I'm going to move to the next question, but this is going to be like a 30-second response, and then we're going to move into the strategies on stress and anxiety. If there are any questions that are in the chat that we haven't touched yet, feel free to redrop them in so that I know exactly what you're looking to get answered. So this one we'll spend, if you have any comments or panelists, quick 30 seconds, any automation tips that you want to pop in here?
Speaking on behalf of Asana, again, in particular, what I recommend to all of my non-PMs and personnel who are onboarding to Asana is just turn off all of your notifications except for the email notification that says when work is assigned to you and when someone requests access to your work, and then also when someone mentions you. That way you're not in flux with everything that you might be a collaborator on, just the things that are most important.
Oh, that's so important because it really does flood your inbox if you're a collaborator on something, because every part of it is being flooded into your inbox. Yeah, I love that. Assigned, @mentioned, and what was that third one?
Assigned, @mentioned, when someone's trying to access your work, but then
yes,
I thought of a fourth one, which is reminders to finish a drafted comment, because I do that all the time.
Yes. Yeah, where you don't actually comment and it's sitting in draft. I actually love that Asana keeps comments in draft because it has saved me multiple times. Okay, JR, Kim, anything on automation that you want to talk about? We can move into strategies.
Two tips. If you can add an automation to a project, if you use Asana, and every project has a specific email address. So if you save the email address of a specific project in your contacts, then you can easily forward it to a specific project and have specific rules applied to it. And the second thing is, if you want to dive into a rabbit hole like I have, it actually is possible with tools like Power Automate, where you can set up an automation that scans the reply of the email that you did and whether it involves a question by scanning it, whether it contains a question mark, and then automatically adds it to the folder that's waiting for. So I have that run.
That is So
for a while.
smart. I love that. Wait, what was the automation called that you're using?
I built it, and
Oh,
it's a
dope.
rabbit hole because you need to filter like only the reply that you've sent
Yeah.
and whether it contains a question mark, and so it's a bit tricky to get right because sometimes hyperlinks also have a question mark inside them.
Yeah.
But I'm sure it's possible to get it working if you really want it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said you were using an automation that you built this automation. That makes sense. And so when you are thinking about automation for your inbox, definitely think through all of the different implications it could have. So for me, like I mentioned before, I filter out all those unsubscribe. Anything that has unsubscribe in the message goes into my newsletter folder. But if there's an unsubscribe on an application like that you really need the notifications for, you'll need to filter that out. So what JR was saying is it can be a little tricky sometimes, but once you have started thinking through, hey, like this would be helpful for me if I knew if there was a question in something for any replies that we've had, you can start to build out those automations as we go. So we have about 4 minutes left. I am sorry. I always do this every time. I need to remove questions because I know we're going to have great conversations. But I really wanted to get time to I'm going to skip the rules. We're going to go straight to what strategies do you use to manage stress and anxiety? And if you have a comment on specifically like rules around how you check and when you check, feel free to include those here.
Yeah, I can try to go quickly. I think I already covered the how and when I check and other things, so I can skip that part. I think in terms of strategies, if your brain is like mine, and I'm guessing a lot of people are, you can actually be your worst taskmaster because you're inventing your own projects in your head. You're getting interested in a lot of different things all at once. I think for me, like learning to figure out how to, like I can name a project like website 2.0 and I just write it down somewhere and but I'm not going to get started on it. I really try to limit the number of active projects, which are like big collections of related tasks that I'm working on. At the same time, as much as you can affect that, it's very useful because you pay a very heavy load if you have to task switch between the projects. So that context switching costs you a lot of time. The other thing is, because I do have a busy mind, first thing I do in the morning is get my kids outdoors as much as I can so that everything's nice and quiet and I can think. I start the day easy. I spend the first hour doing 20 minutes of some light exercise, 20 minutes of reading, 20 minutes of journaling. And that forces me to slow down and get this big picture mentality so that I'm in a good headspace to actually sit down and follow my time blocking most of the time. I think the other thing, like how do you manage stress and anxiety? The best tips, looking in, read some books on anxiety. It's and just understanding how and where it comes from. And then, because there's different techniques to use, but like realizing that anxiety is your brain trying to make predictions about the future that might never come. And so you can tamper down anxiety a lot by just trying to understand how to break that cycle of thinking. And that's probably the hardest work I've ever done in my whole life. So Dan will have to make another webinar.
Could be a couple months from now. Limiting active projects helps me to also be able to think about less things. Time blocking and slowing down your brain and understanding where anxiety is coming from they're so great. JR, Erica, do you have 15 seconds, last parting advice, and then we'll move on into where people can find you?
My thing is just, I know we talked about the joint email. Attach a joint calendar to that, have it on your phone, separate color, and it'll keep everything nice and tightly organized.
Yeah. +1 on limiting the amount of projects that you have going, not just for the context switching, but also you'll get projects done fast because you need to switch less time. And as for the stress, what I try to do is only include a deadline on a task when it really is a deadline, because I've been hoarding tasks like, oh, I should do this, or I want to do this day, and then it moves to the next, and it moves to the next, and then you find yourself with a big snow shovel of tasks that bleed over to the next day. Don't add a deadline when it doesn't need a deadline. You're just gonna be busy shifting.
Yeah, that's definitely something I've learned as well, which is if you are putting too much on your plate, you're really going to lose out on the things that you really prioritize and you really need to do. Okay, thank you everyone for coming. Here is all of our information. Feel free to take a screenshot here. We will be sending out this recording after the webinar. You will need to be subscribed to Asana's newsletter. So if you've ever unsubscribed before, just let me know. Contact me on either LinkedIn or through my form here, and I can shoot it to you myself. I'll also be posting it on the Asana forum. And I also wanted to highlight a couple of other things in the chat, which is JR has a post on avoiding email in LinkedIn, and there are links there. Jeff Sue is a productivity expert that works at Google. I'm also shooting his name through. And yeah, thank you everyone for joining. Sorry for going over a little bit, but we will see you next time. Our next event is not posted yet. So if you do want to have access to that event, feel free to go to my link tree so that you can sign up for early access. Thank you, everyone. JR, Kim, and Erica, what a great conversation. Thank you. I will hang on for a few more minutes if anyone needs conversation or wants to ask a couple more questions, but feel free to drop off and have a wonderful day. We're going to stop recording now.